The punch-drunk tomato can Olympics are over in the city of Winnipeg. Michael McLean, Coach, have I got a story to share with you today about world building, badass world building. But it has to do with one of my favorite hockey franchises in the NHL, the glorious Winnipeg Jets. One of the coldest cities in North America, one of the smallest cities in the National Hockey League. You got to be a special person to live there. You got to be a special player to want to play there. It's just a special place. And I've lived in Northern Canada coaching hockey, and I understand that there's nothing as incredible as being involved with a small community team. Even at the professional level, there's something special about being in a community that takes so much pride in their one major professional team. In Winnipeg's case, the city of Winnipeg has the Jets, right? They don't have Major League Baseball, they don't have NBA, they don't have NFL, so the Jets are it. If you live in Winnipeg, it's like when I coached my hometown Perth Blue Wings in junior hockey, you bleed blue. Like, people stop you on the street, you can't go anywhere, they want to talk about the team. It's like the Packers, it's in Wisconsin. It's like, it's important. It's part of the fabric and it's part of people's lives. But I was reading an article this morning, and I'm going to insert it. I'm going to print it off and put this article in this month's Michael McLean World Building newsletter. And if you haven't subscribed to my World Building newsletter, it's a paper and ink newsletter that I mail every single month. It's on world building, your marriage, your money, your health, your fitness, your marketing, you name it. How to build a world that you never need to escape from. It's basically essentially doing the opposite of the quiet desperation, the opposite of the sedated and medicated, the bootlickers. If you're looking to become king of your own castle, a badass world builder, this is the newsletter for you. It's like $97, a cup of coffee a day, less than a cup of coffee a day. The link is below, badassletter.com, badass letter. So the Jets, I was reading an article this morning in The Athletic that I'm going to stuff in the newsletter and mail it to subscribers. I've also posted it in the online private locker room forum for men to look at. But they're talking about Winnipeg, by the way. You don't have to be a hockey fan at all. But David Linton's very proud of this. This is in my Champions Mastermind. David is a Winnipeg Jets fan, and he's been through all the brutal years. And you want to talk rags to riches. So the Jets, basically 2.5 years ago, they hit rock bottom, which is saying a lot. I mean, hitting rock bottom in Winnipeg means you're irrelevant, you're not making the playoffs, there's all kinds of controversy around the team, and it just kills those great fans. So they had enough of what I call the country club culture. See, when I coach hockey, or I coach marketing, or I coach world building, I'm not a player's coach. I think you know that. I'm a clear as kind, unclear as unkind. I've studied and learned from Bill Parcells and Mike Ditka, Scotty Bowman, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Bobby Knight, Mike Krzyzewski. These are my type of role models when it comes to coaching. I believe tough guys win. I believe tough coaches win. If you want to win, you got to hire the Jimmy Johnson and let him build the program. If you want to be number one in the country, you got to hire the Jim Harbaugh and let him do his shtick. And that's the price of winning. So I don't come from a country club, and I don't run a country club, but under Coach Paul Maurice, who's doing exceptionally well now in Florida, his team got to the finals last year, but Paul's time was over in Winnipeg 2.5 seasons ago. The team had, all kinds of problems, cancer in the dressing room, just a toxic environment. And like all good coaches, Maurice is a solid coach. His expiry date was up. So, you know, he landed on his feet here in Florida where we are, and he's done a tremendous job. But some tough love was needed in Winnipeg. What happens when we have a government that spends us into oblivion? All of a sudden the voters wake up and we'll bring in a conservative government and we'll try and clean up the mess. Same thing in business. You know, you can have people running these companies into the ground, and all of a sudden, you know, Apple is receding, Apple is losing. Who do they bring back? They bring back Steve Jobs. Who does Starbucks bring back? They bring back the founder. They bring back the ass kicker. They bring back the ass kicker to get it back on the rails. Well, in Winnipeg's case, I mean, there was all kinds of mutiny. These guys, you know, didn't want to play there. All this culture of what I call entitlement, rat poison, as Saban would say. So, Rick Bowness at the time, who is now the new coach of Winnipeg, he's been there for 2.5 years. I know Bowness. I met him twice. He used to coach in my hometown in Ottawa in Canada. But Bowness is an interesting character because if you met Bowness, you would think, man, this guy is the nicest guy on earth. And the 2 times that I met Rick at 2 coaching clinics, that was the impression I got. I'm like, I'd love to play for this guy. But in all the places he's been, and I think he's coached the most games in the National Hockey League now of any coach, the guy is 70 years old now. So he was retired 2.5 years ago. He had been fired by the Dallas Stars, and you know, his experience, you're hired to be fired. In that case, of course, what were the players saying when he was fired? It was, oh, he's too tough. He can't relate. He's 68 years old. He's 67 years old. He can't relate. We need a softer touch. That's the cycle of winning. Soft then hard, soft then hard. Same in the government, same in business. So he got shown the door in Dallas and it was time to go. So he's retired. Like, he's 67, 68 at the time. And him and his wife are finally looking forward to, you know, leaving NHL hockey behind. They probably lived in 25 cities. His kid is raised. It's time to go to Arizona and just take it easy in golf. But the Winnipeg Jets would not take no for an answer. And literally they had to contact Bowness a whole bunch of times just to get him to finally reply. They actually had to go through his son because he was done coaching in the NHL 2.5 years ago. But they said, you know what? This is our guy. This is the ass kicker. This is the leader. This is the influencer. This is the guy who can build a new world. And that's what Jimmy Johnson did when he took over the Dallas Cowboys from last place to 2 Super Bowls. That was just world building. When they brought back Steve Jobs from Apple after he left and the place almost went into the ground, that was just world building. Come back and rebuild the world. Anything that's great is just world building. Your family is world building, your health is world building, your bank account, doing what you want to do when you want to do it. So to fast track it, Bowness is got the team now. 2 years later, he went in there with a fucking broom. And I can relate so much to this guy because when I took over my dad's company, it was a good company, but you had 3 or 4 people in there that, you know, were my dad's people. And I said to myself, you know, what would Bill Parcells do here when these people don't want to buy into my new ideas for marketing? And I just knew it. Parcells would take an absolute blowtorch to the place. So I broomed all my employees in the insurance business. Everybody but my dad was gone, and I retooled the place. So I know a thing or two about firing everybody and starting over. Now, Bowness, he didn't have to fire everybody, and it's hard to do in the NHL. But he went in there and he interviewed every player when he took the job in the summer. And like Bill Parcells said, he didn't go on reputation. He went on what he saw and heard. And if he didn't like what he saw or heard from a player, and this is in the off season, he said he made changes, or he went to the general manager and said, we have to make a change. But he literally got rid of 2/3 of the leadership core, 2 of the 3 team captains, adios amigo. And these were the 3 guys at the last season before he was hired. They're they don't make the playoffs. They're a disgrace to the community. And these are the three clowns who, when they're interviewed at their exit interviews, players always get interviewed, the last day. And what do? They blame everybody else. In other words, when Paul Maurice was the coach, there wasn't enough accountability. The players here don't care enough. Whatever it was. These are your captains. These are guys that create the culture, and they say statements like that. They're just crabs in the bucket, those guys. They're not leaders. Michael Jordan's a leader. Tom Brady's a leader. Those guys aren't leaders. They're just pointing the finger. So Rick Bowness and the general manager, they get rid of two of the 3 of these guys. Get rid of them. And the 3rd guy that stays, he kicks his ass 6 ways to Sunday when necessary, and he's turned into one of the best players in the National Hockey League, a 40-goal scorer. But it's all about world building. Like, here you are now, today, in January, sitting in first place in the NHL, only 2.5 years into his job, and the fans, the community's on fire. But now he's got this team. It reminds me of the Green Bay Packers and what's happening with them. It reminds me of any team that Parcells took over, where it takes a year to get rid of the pretenders. It takes a year to get rid of the tomato cans and the punch drunk, losers. What Jimmy Johnson say? He goes, I got rid of all the, how'd you build a championship in 4 years? From the outhouse to the penthouse. And Jimmy said off the record, he didn't say it in the media, I just got rid of all the losers. Well, in your business or in your life, in your world, it takes time to get rid of all the losers. You'll have people in there you think are winners and they're not winners. And you've always got to be curating. You're gonna find out, like the great Dan Kennedy says, that people go lame on you. You might have somebody that's worked for you for 25 years and all of a sudden he or she, they don't want to do it anymore. They don't want to follow orders. So you make those decisions every day, but the curation process never ends. The swift sword never ends. And I've said many times with my hockey teams and with my businesses and even in my personal life, everybody's on probation. With Rick Bowness in Winnipeg, everybody's on probation. Once they read these rat poison headlines, we're in first place, what do you think's coming next for Winnipeg? You're going to have a skid here. It's only natural, where guys, they suck in that success, rat poison. Like the great Fred Shiro said back in the Philadelphia Flyers days, he's like, fame and success is like cologne. It's great to be around, just don't swallow it. Well, Bowness is going to have some of his athletes swallowing this. It's just human nature. We all do that. But he's the guy who's going to be there to kick ass and hold guys accountable and get them back on the rails. And the real test of Rick Bowness bringing in the right people. And when I say right people, I'm talking about your secretaries, your receptionists, everybody, the people that clean your office. I don't give a shit who's in your life. Whether it's your strength coach, whether it's a nutritionist, whether it's a high school friend, I don't care who it is. Everybody has to pass that test. And if you have crabs in the bucket, toxic people and things in your life, you're never, ever going to build a championship world. A world builder doesn't have weak links. What a world builder does is say no to almost everything, and is just constantly curating things and people. You're curating gambling, you're curating alcohol, you're curating toxic foods out of your life, you're curating bad people, you're curating anti-social media. It never ends. But this is what Bowness has done in Winnipeg, and they talk about how they play the game now. He plays the game, okay? He plays the game the way a Jimmy Johnson football team would play, the right way. They make few mistakes, they defend well, they're in the best physical shape of every team in the league, and if you don't play well, you know what? He's going to nail your ass to that bench or put it up in the press conference. He doesn't give a shit how much you make. He's 70 years old or more, and all he wants to do is help people and win. That's it. And that's the kind of guy I want leading any organization with, where it's just like, I just want to win. When I had my Perth Blue Wing teams, I didn't have any kids on the team or any politics. The players knew that I just wanted to win. I wasn't perfect, I made lots of mistakes, but I just wanted to win. That's what the Winnipeg Jets have. And for you guys that are watching, you know, you're 45, you're 55, you're 65, you're 70 years old. And you're like, oh, I'm too old for this, or I'm too old for that, or that's passed me by, or I'm a tech dinosaur. Fucking what kind of way is that to talk to yourself? You know, it's a good thing you're not in the fucking room with my dad, okay? Because if you were in the room with my dad, you'd be getting back up. I mean, that my dad told me 20 years ago when I started working for him. You know, I thought I was something pretty special there in the first couple years of the insurance business, like as if I had accomplished something or as if I was doing something special. And he wrote me in one day in the office and he said, listen, he goes there, champ, superstar. He said, listen, he says, a man's prime is 55. And I was like, a man's prime is 55. I said, I think a man's prime is when he's 25 or maybe 20. And he says, that's how a normie thinks. That's how a bootlicker thinks, that's how a high school punk thinks. Are you kidding me? He said, a man at age 55 should be at the peak of his physical health, his mental health, his emotional health, his spiritual health, the most money, the most everything. Maybe you're not, you know, sprinting and lifting the weights that you did in high school, but you could be. He said, so he says, your prime as a world builder is 55 and above. So he says, you know what, buddy? He says, you better get to fucking work. He goes, I see a lot of holes in your game. I see a lot of holes in your game. And I was like, wow. I mean, he's talking 20, 30 years ahead. And I'm sure glad we had that candid conversation. But if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, what's your next mountain? My mom and dad are both 90 and they still have huge purpose. My dad still wants to talk about business, about marketing, about failure, about winning. That's all they want to talk about. But man, oh man, too old for what? Too old for what? Nick Saban, who just retired, what was he, 71? Belichick, who's looking for another job, is like 71, 72. Like, you know, you got Trump running for office. He's in his 70s. The guy works 365 days a year. You know, not everybody's Creepy Joe. You want to be the opposite of that guy. You want to be, you know, the guy that's 70 and 80 and it's like, I'm working on my next mission. This is the next chapter of my life. But if you're 40 and 50, it's like, wake up. If you do this right, if you take care of yourself and you have purpose and you do the opposite of the quiet majority, if you do the opposite of the quiet majority, the quiet desperation crowd, what you eat, what you drink, how you think, who you associate with, are you kidding me? You got 30, 40 years of pure fucking time with your kids, your grandkids, your queen. But what's the purpose? What's the next chapter? These NFL coaches, Rick Bowness got fired. He's like, next chapter. Tries to retire in Arizona, gets one phone call, they move to Winnipeg. That's a guy with purpose. That's a guy with, you know, relentlessness. And he's gone to build another world. So what's your next world? And what's your next world after that? I'm giving myself 10 years for this thing I'm doing here with Marc-Andre, helping 1 million men like you build worlds that you don't need to escape from. That's 10 years. And I'm 4 years into this. And when this is over in 6 years, I'm going to sit down with my wife and I'm going to say, what's next? What's next? And when they find me at the end, I'm going to be in fucking full stride. A cleaner and a closer, they know there is no finish line. Oh, and by the way, just so we're clear, there is no summit. There is no summit. Rick Bowness doesn't have a summit. Nick Saban doesn't have a summit. Those guys don't have a summit. Scotty Bowman didn't have a summit. It's just a place to rest for a few days until they get the next challenge in front of them. Think about that one. There is no finish line. There is no summit. There is no end. There is no end. It's just a rest stop until you decide what your next badass chapter is. You want help? You want help building the best chapter of your life? The next 5, 10, 20, 30 years? I'm a badass world builder. I build worlds for myself. I've lived many, many different lives, many, many different worlds. Professional coaching, owning my own teams. I was in the insurance world, barbershop world, retired world. Now I'm in the badass millionaire world. But you know what? That's what I do. And my mission, like I said, I've got 6 more years to help 1 million men finally design a life, a secret society that for you, that you never need to escape from. You're doing the opposite of the quiet desperation. They walk around sedated, they walk around medicated, stressed, intoxicated, because they're so fucking unhappy. You want to do the opposite. You want to be a world builder. Sylvester Stallone was a world builder, is a world builder. Steve Jobs was a business world builder. Okay, Belichick and Brady were world builders. Like, a person who runs a farm can be a world builder. A police officer can be a world builder. You just have to answer this question. What do you really want? Not what your old man wanted or your brother wants. What do you really want? And once you decide what you really want, you're good to go. You're absolutely good to go. And that's the big thing, is decide what you want and get after it. And that's where I can help. Now, my January Michael McLean World Building newsletter, it's a print newsletter. It's a real paper and ink newsletter. If you're not subscribed, you're about to miss out big time. What am I going to miss out on? Well, you're going to miss out on my most important writing of the year, which is my State of the Union address, where I literally sit down. The whole publication is one special report on the 25 things, 25, that my 25 rules for 2024. These are the rules that I'm following personally as a husband, a father, as an entrepreneur, as a community leader, that are going to make all the difference for me in a brand new year. That's all that's about. World Building 101. You can subscribe below at badassletter.com. That's badassletter.com. The only reason I live in Naples here half the year is because I'm a world builder. The only reason we're homeschooling our children is because we're world builders. The only reason I'm getting in the best physical, mental, and spiritual shape of my life is because I'm a world builder. I live in the 2 greatest countries in the world because I'm a world builder. You don't need to want any of this stuff. Maybe you just want to make 90 grand a year and be done work every day at 12 noon. That's good on you. A tip of the hat to you. But a world builder has a life of autonomy, control, independence. And what's your North Star? Personal sovereignty. You have personal sovereignty. That means you do what you want, when you want, where you want, with whom you want, at the price you want. That's personal sovereignty. That's world building. And everything in your world is connected, by the way. There's no silos. Your health is connected to your fitness is connected to your finances is connected to your marriage is connected to your mental health is connected to your marketing. There's no silos. So when you put it all together in a brand new year, it's just, that's how you live a life that nobody else does. You live a life you never need to escape from. I look at this tennis court here as like, this is my world. It's a walled garden. I decide who comes into my world. I decide who gets jetted out of my world. I decide who gets broomed. I'm no different than Rick Bonas. I'm no different than Steve Jobs. I'm coming in here and I'm building a championship life every day. So if you need help with this, you need to subscribe below, badassletter.com, because this is important stuff. This is really important stuff. And it's less than a cup of coffee a day, $3.24 or something. That's pocket change. If you're a serious man and a serious entrepreneur and a serious father, that's pocket change. That's friggin' pocket change. If your family and your world and your employees aren't worth that, man, you got bigger problems than I can help. Okay, there's only a couple of days left. Before it has to go to print. It's a real deadline. It's not one of those goofy guru deadlines. We got to print this. Marc Andre's got to stuff it and mail it, and it needs to be in your mailbox so you receive it by the end of January. To do that, you've only got a couple more days. If you're interested, if this is your cup of whiskey and you finally want to build the world of your dreams this year or take your life to a next level, okay, then subscribe below at badassletter.com, and I'm going to write and share my State of the Union world building address and the 25 rules, the 25 insider secrets that I'm focusing on this year. You just take one of these secrets per month and you'll absolutely transform your life and your business this year. You will kick ass and you will take names, but you gotta go in with both feet. Stop living with one foot on the brake and one on the gas pedal. Stop playing not to lose and stop playing like everybody else, playing defense. World building is about you burning the boats and taking the island. World building is about swinging for the fences. World building is about what you want. And world building is about 2 words, personal sovereignty. Badassletter.com. 2 words that changed my life, 2 words that can change yours. Be relentless.